Grazie.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Donna Lozito. I am an animal communicator and a homeopath. But today I have Elena Mannes, who is an author of many books around animals and animal communication. And we're going to talk a little bit about how animals help us through our journey, how animals can help us move spiritually and grow spiritually, and how they can help us on a daily basis with self-care. With that, let's begin with Eleanor. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how your animals have influenced your experience with self-care and spirituality?
My animals have really all my life, looking back, even before I knew it, have been central to my self-care. As a child, the family cat was essential to my self-care. I know that when I was upset or scared, he would come to lie on my bed, and somehow I relied on him. I mean, I didn't know at that point what was going on, but he was a big part of my life. And I'll jump over the major influence, but just now, my third standard poodle, Bacho, Bachi for short, jumped up on the chair because he's a help. I mean, it's such a help. It's so central to my self-care, which
And
I've
sure.
now become aware of, to have that connection.
And just to make that more clear, I think that, before we began this video, we were talking about how we were going to lay it out and where would we begin. And with that, Bocce jumps up on the chair for support. And those are the kinds of things that are important for us to really take note of.
Yes, I mean, I didn't take note of them for a long time after my childhood, I think. And my story about acknowledging and really understanding the importance of animals and how their centrality to our lives and our journey began with my first dog, another black standard poodle named Brio. And you, Donna, were such a major part of that journey with them. He truly was a special soul, which I learned over the years. I started out as a big skeptic about anything that I couldn't prove in the material world. I'm a filmmaker and an author and a journalist, and I was taught to get the facts and rely on science and the facts and the evidence. And through Brio, initially, I entered a world in which none of that was relevant,
Tell us
really.
more about that.
Well, I felt when he was a puppy that I couldn't connect with him. He did crazy things. He ran away from me in the park. He caused me to fall backwards into a pond. I mean, and I was really brought to tears sometimes. I felt desperate that, I really wanted this dog, this puppy, but I just didn't feel a connection. So I heard about people who call themselves animal communicators, who could understand other animals, our pets, a word I don't like, and help us to understand them and connect. So I researched, because I'm a journalist. So I found a well-known animal psychic, as they called them then, in California, and I called her on the phone, and she immediately apparently got something out of Brio, which I was astounded at the time. And she described the street I lived on and my apartment and how it was crowded with furniture, and he figured out how to wind around the furniture. And he liked the wider street better than the narrow street, and he liked to look out the window, and all of it was true. I thought, oh my God, what's going on here? I mean, so, but my curiosity was definitely whetted. So partly in the guise of research for work, I have to admit, I folded it into some work that I did. I spoke to other animal communicators, and I kept really coming to realize that something was happening in here that I couldn't explain by ordinary means. So over the years, I mean, he had a lot of health problems, but other people recognized how special he was. Like, I once went to an Ayurvedic doctor, a nutritionist for myself, and I took the dog because I forget why he was with me. And the guy comes in, he paid little attention to me, he looks at Brio and says, "Oh my goodness, that's a special soul." And he said, "You can be sure he's not coming back as a dog." So in a way, kind of thing was validating, that I felt other people recognized how special he was. And he had many health problems, and I talked to, at that point, other animal communicators who helped me come through that. But his spirit was so much a part of me by that time, that he was the most special relationship in my life and still is. And then he passed, and that's when I contacted you, because I'd heard from a friend that, were amazing, and you helped connect with animals who'd passed. And that's how our connection started. And with you and others, I mean, I continued to feel that connection get ever stronger when he was in spirit. And even to this day, it continues. And there was so much that I could not deny, that I truly came to believe that he is there, that somehow consciousness endures. I mean, it not only changed my understanding of how important animals are, our animals, but it changed my perspective on what an existence itself and consciousness and all that stuff. So,
And how, Elena, has that helped you in your present day self-care? How would you describe it as assistance for you to continue moving through bettering yourself, and how?
well, and what comes to mind at the moment is keeping me in the moment. I mean, starting with Brio, who loved to go into flower shops and just sit and smell. He didn't want to interact with people. He didn't want treats. He just sat there and smelled the flowers, smelled the roses. But continuing, they bring me back to my true self. I mean, if I didn't, it's so important. I mean, it helps me to center and somehow get out of my crazy mind and the fear and the stress. Because when I'm with my animals, they're there in the moment with me.
Right. And they show us how to do that.
Yeah. And so that's an important thing, but just their essence. I mean, they're so pure, it's very hard to put into words, but they don't have the noise, I think, that we have in our heads. And that's a connection to the heart, not the mind. I mean, not that they're not intelligent. I think they're just as intelligent as we are in different ways. But it also comes down to that love connection and the channel. I think you could talk more articulately about this and how to develop that channel of communication with another being.
And I think also it helps open the heart space, which, as humans, it's not our best subject.
Right. I mean, it's hard. For me, it's continues to be hard.
And the more that you depend on your animals or lean on your animals for support is another way of becoming aware of our own heart space and how to really function from that space the way they do.
Yeah, I mean, he's young and he's very exuberant and often a handful. But when I'm stressed, like the other night on the sofa, he doesn't usually, he curls up in a corner, but he came and put his head on my lap and just stayed there. And we never had done something like that exactly that way. And I really think he picked up on what I was feeling, and he wanted to be there.
Yeah, because they come in, they know what their work is. Of course, he had to get through his puppyhood because he was a puppy, and he had to be puppy for his puppy years, but the soul always knowing what the purpose is, and they just that's a knowing that they are wired to directly, and as are we, but I think they really follow that because they don't have the mind distraction of the world of that we do as humans in that intellectual world. And And so can you say a little bit more about any of your other animals? I know we have a cat that wants us to talk about it.
Yes, lest I forget him. My wonderful cat, Kismet,
Best
uh,
cat ever.
who unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago, along closely my second dog, Bravo. We don't want to leave Bravo out because he had
Absolutely.
he had so much joy. He was sort of the middle child in some ways, the middle dog child. But um, each one is special in its own way. Kismet, the cat, really ran and grounded the household at the time with me and Bravo. He had us all under his sway, and he was the ruler. And he was my rock during many hard times, is my rock. I think of them all every day, often. But
And that alone, I'm sure, really helps you ground.
and Kismet seems to manifest amazing appearances of some sort, or at least one.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, Kismet, I mean, he was such a rock, and but he always makes me laugh. I cannot think of him like when I'm meditating and he comes to me, his face, Rio has a certain effect. He's in my heart, but Kismet arrives and it just makes me laugh. But he shortly after he died, I was looking at the bathroom floor where his litter box used to be, which is kind of modeled. I don't know what it is, but it's modeled pattern. And I'd never seen this before, but there was an image which you've seen, which I think was pretty clear, of Kismet's face. I mean, I just, I'd never seen it before. So, and then it disappeared shortly after that and has never reappeared since. So that was reinforcing. And then, I mean, I've heard it's a common experience for people grieving their animals to feel that they or even hear them or see them. And I did kind of see Kismet once coming around the corner of my bed shortly after he passed.
Yes. And how about tell us briefly about the time in the ocean with the dolphins?
Oh, yes. Well, I went to a dolphin, not really a retreat, but a excursion experience with swimming with wild dolphins in Bimini. And the event was run by a animal communicator. So most everybody there had animals, and when we were through being out with the dolphins for the day, she would 2 or 3 times during the week, I forget, twice, she'd have these sessions where she would read some of our animals, and we had to put pictures out on the floor. And I put all 3 of my animals out, Brio, of course, and Bravo, and Kismet. So she gets to me, and she was looking around on the floor at these pictures, and she sort of said, well, this cat says he has something to say. And then Elena needs to connect with me. So, I mean, I forget her exact words, but from translating Kismet, that he was always there. Oh, but then we were swimming with these dolphins, and it took several days that I didn't really have a connection with them that people talk about. You're not allowed to touch them or anything, but they swim pretty close to the people on the boat. But I hadn't had that real connection. And a few days before this session with the animals on the pictures, I finally did. This one dolphin came up quite close to me, and there was the eye connection. And for people who haven't experienced that, it's quite amazing to have a wild animal look you in the eye. It's like kind of recognition or validation. So Kismet says in this session, he said, according to the animal communicator, that she thinks that she caused the connection, but no, the animal communicator thought, facilitated the connection, the dolphin connection, but it was me. Me, Kismet. That's what she translated. So what are you going to say to that?
Well, there's, you have that, we have that kind of inner verification when, when the connection is made, because the real connection is about you and Kismet, and, she just becomes the messenger. So whatever she says can be verified only by you.
Well, that's true with all of them. I mean, with Brio to begin with, and the dolphin even. I mean, I knew it was like a spark or a frisson or something. I mean, I just knew that connection had been made somehow. I mean, it didn't have to last long, but I knew it had happened inside.
And can you explain a little bit for our audience how that actually, that spark, that moment of connection, how does that shift things for you to move forward differently?
It was a recognition, which kind of, I've had self-doubts and
Mhm.
all that, as many people do. I mean, one woman in the event said she didn't feel she was worthy of a connection with a dolphin, and she had her own moment and said, I had it now, I feel worthy, and that's a good way of putting it. I felt recognized and seen.
Absolutely. And how much does that actually help us heal?
Right.
Really, really wonderful. Well, I just want to say thank you for sharing your wonderful experience. We can talk more about this. I know that we've got many topics, spirituality and healing trauma, and we can take this up at another time, but I think that your experience with how your family, your animal family, has helped you move forward in your life is really a fantastic story.
Well, it's my story for sure, and thank you so much for. It wouldn't have been the same without you.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. It was wonderful to meet all your animals. They have been on the money at every turn, might we say.
Well, I pray they still are.
Absolutely. They aren't going anywhere.
So thank you.
You're very welcome.